Welcome to Canuck of the Dead. Today we continue our path down the franchise that is Halloween with Halloween H2O, and I won't wait to bring him in. Benner, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Rob? Thanks for having me back. This is what, episode 6?
1, 2, 3.
6, right? Yeah.
I think it is. Yes.
Right on. Awesome. Yeah.
Halloween H2O, the first of the reboots, something what?
Yeah.
Or no, new timelines.
Yes, first of the new timeline offshoots in this franchise. And you know what? I was thinking about this too. I was trying to remember if this was like the first time they had really done this, where they had taken a like an original film and sort of ignored previous sequels. And I couldn't think of anything else other than this one. But I could be wrong. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
So Halloween is groundbreaking.
Yet again, right?
Nice. Well, and this one too came about because of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah,
literally. Actually, you know what? Let's play the trailer so everybody can get caught up. That way they know what we're talking about.
Cool. Let's do it.
All right, nothing to fear. The coast is clear.
Nothing's missing.
They did a real number on your office.
My office?
Oh, there's crap everywhere.
Got mail.
Birthday card.
It's only 2 months late. I'm impressed.
Cash is good. I'm gonna need it when I go to Yosemite.
You're not going?
No, I'm going to Yosemite.
No, you're not.
Look, I know today is the day, but I think...
Oh, really? What day is that, John?
Halloween.
Oh, I hadn't noticed.
Mom, we're through with all that.
Ronnie, the phones are out.
There's a strange car parked down at the gate, but I can't seem to find any signs of trespassing.
What are you doing? Hey.
I'm just gonna go find John.
Go to the door. We're gonna call the cops.
Here's the door. Lock it.
There we go.
Great trailer. That's a great trailer.
It is, because it doesn't give a lot away, but it shows you so much.
Yeah, okay, let's get into it. I got a lot of comments on this one. And I also do feel like it's I don't know, it's conflicting for me for sure, because I really loved what they tried to do with this film, and I think it's moderately successful for sure. But again, like I was saying just before the trailer there, I think this is the first incarnation of as far as I know, of a movie that was like, yeah, okay, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna ignore sequels 4, 5, and 6. We're gonna pretend that those didn't happen. We're gonna go back and take the classic feel of this franchise, which is Halloween 1 and 2, and then we're going to expand on that. So we're basically going to create a new trilogy using this movie, and by doing so, the trade-off is that we get Jamie Lee Curtis back, so we get Laurie Strode back. So she's no longer dead. She no longer dies in a car accident as per Halloween 4, but she's alive and well. And this kind of shows, the 20 years later, with like, the amount of trauma that she's gone through and stuff like that. So obviously, this is sort of revisited with the Blumhouse Halloween films, but this is kind of the first time they did it. And in 1998, which is when the film was released, kind of a novel idea. Of course, lots of good things going on with this with this flick. Obviously, Kevin Williamson of the Scream franchise wrote the story. Apparently, he's uncredited in this film, but he had a lot to do with it behind the scenes. So, of course, his fingerprints are kind of all over this. And just from, excuse me, like when these films were coming out around that time, the late 90s, like really hot young cast. All these actors were pretty hot at the time, or up and coming actors, and so it's got that kind of vibe that was sort of going on in the late 90s, similar to like Urban Legend or The Faculty, or that sort of stuff, which kind of came out after this movie. But yeah, it's an interesting film for sure, so I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Well, I did some research, and I'm going to jump back to right at the beginning when you were talking. The original script was not a breakaway. The original script actually took place. It was technically Halloween 7, and they had references in there, even in the intro cut originally, and in the story. One of the students was supposed to bring up the Halloween murders, and what happened with Jamie Lloyd and things like that. And the original story, once Jamie Lee Curtis signed on, was that she had gone into protection, like a witness protection program, and that death was there faked. Right.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig that.
Then they brought Kevin Williamson on board, and that's when he started rewriting it and went, you know what, let's just ignore everything except 1 and 2. It'll make things simpler. And you can still see one hint of it when you're watching that opening credit with all the different, newspaper articles and all that.
Mm-hmm.
They still have the pair of scissors that Rachel got killed by in the opening.
Oh, really?
Credit. Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it actually is this is pure luck, I know, but H2O is water, and the pH balance of water is 7. So it was so funny that this was going to be Halloween 7.
Awesome. Okay. That's neat. I like that stuff. Yeah, that's great. I think, this film really, really tries to kind of reestablish, we had a really great discussion about Halloween 5 and 6, and sort of where things kind of went off the rails, and how had they made some different choices, maybe those films would be better. And also, just to kind of get your viewers up to speed, or just a little bit of a refresher, we've kind of said that like Halloween 1, 2, and 4 are sort of our favorite trilogy as of right now.
Yeah.
Because it's the most complete story, and it's like got the coolest entries, and incorporates like the best parts of the plot and the overarching arc for Michael Myers and the characters and that sort of stuff the best. But having said that, this movie definitely has some stuff I don't like about it, and we'll get into that. But ultimately, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't like Jamie Lee Curtis. But I gotta say, like, one of the things I do really, really respect about her as an actress is how committed she is to projects, and how she's not necessarily like the busiest actress. Like, she's not making projects all the time, but the projects that she really commits to. And I think that's, and outside the Halloween franchise, I think it's one of the reasons the Halloween franchise is so successful and has had that longevity, her willingness to kind of come back to the character and respect the role. Kind of the same thing that we were talking about with Donald Pleasance and the Dr. Loomis character, that he was, coming back into that role and not treating it like a paycheck, treating it like with the respect that the character deserves. And that really, I think you see that on the screen. I think that's really, you can really see that in this movie. And of course, Josh Hartnett playing her son, who I think this is his first movie.
Brand
screen debut. Competent actor. I mean, as of right now, like currently, like he's sort of out of the spotlight. I don't really know what he's doing, but he went on to have a really successful career, lots of great roles. And he's a competent actor, a good looking kid, right? Like, so he's believable as this sort of this character that's kind of has a conflict with his mom's trauma from 20 years ago. And of course, I think, I don't know if this is Michelle Williams' first movie, but I think it's close.
Pretty darn. I think there was like 4 credits before it.
Yeah, and of course, a big shout out to LL Cool J, who was just kind of getting into films at the time in the late 90s. He's a credible actor too. And of course, big shout out to our boy Joseph Gordon-Levitt
Right.
in the front in the opening scene. I think this is his first movie too. I'm just going to kind of reference IMDb here on the fly, but
It's not, actually. I did that when I was watching, and I think there's 5 or 6 credits in front of this one too.
yeah, because I think he was already on Third Rock from the Sun at that point. But again, like just a
He was
kid,
still
right?
fresh.
Like
Yeah.
so I think he was on a few things. So he had done a few, yeah, he had done a bunch of stuff actually before this, but still he was still a young actor. And of course, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's gone on to have a really solid career as well. So this is what I love watching these movies, just to see kind of who they cast at the time. And it's a credit to the casting directors and probably the directors of these films as well, of finding young, talented actors and actresses to fill these roles. When you watch them now, they still give these movies a little bit more oomph to them because they're actually talented. They're talented individuals, right? So yeah, it's cool to see.
Even a crazy, super talented man is not really credited in here, but it's Tom Kane, who's an amazing voice actor. He does all the Star Wars
Yep,
cartoons and things like that. He does Dr. Loomis's voice at the beginning.
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think is the nurse? I can't. Is the nurse at the start? That's the same actress that plays the nurse in the original film, right?
That I'm
Think
not sure of.
I can't remember. I might be confusing that. So if I if I am, tisk tisk, shame on me. But I'm pretty sure it has some, or it's I can't remember. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to look that up while you're talking. But yeah, I mean it's a decent flick. Like it really, obviously it's beloved by fans just because it does restore um, Laurie Strode to the franchise. And it's a competently made film. Again, that trailer is really good. It was distributed by Miramax. Of course, Miramax has a different connotation in the 2020s than it did in the 90s. But in the 90s, like Miramax was like the hottest, like the hottest distribution or production company, probably in the world. I mean, it was home for Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino, and then a lot of these movies as well. So. And of course, Dimension Films being associated with them as well. So they were kind of on the top of the world right now, as far as putting out flicks that everyone kind of wanted to see. And a lot of these flicks are flicks that we all grew up on too. So it's just interesting to see this kind of iconic franchise kind of fall under that. And again, taking the history of the company outside, like get rid of that. Obviously, just look at the film. The film stands up pretty good, and it was a lot of fun watching it.
Well, this film actually shows Jimmy Lee Curtis's dedication to her fans, because this is why she came back to this particular film. Is she wanted to give back, because she said without Halloween, she doubts she would have had the career she did.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what brought her to this project, because she wanted to finalize, Laurie's story.
Yeah.
After watching what they did, the train wreck of 4, 5, and 6. Well, I say train wreck in that storyline, but this is why she decided to come back and why they made this story. And this was going to be the story that you had talked about, because when Jamie Lee Curtis signed on, this was supposed to be, and you see it a little bit, about her trauma and her dealing with the PTSD of having dealt with Michael. But
Yeah, and she's she's an alcoholic, or at least she's maybe not a full blown alcoholic, but she's self medicating with alcohol to deal with the stress and the trauma. And this is kind of twofold too in this movie, which is kind of an interesting take. Is that she's obviously dealing with her own trauma from surviving Halloween 1 and 2, or I guess that one night, because obviously those two movies take place over basically a 24-hour span. But also, dealing with the anxiety and stress of raising your son, as a single mom, which was, now I think if you see that in a movie, it's maybe a little, I don't know if it's cliched or if it's just being overdone, or maybe it's just, par for the course. But at the time, I think it was like an interesting idea, that it wasn't the idyllic family unit. It was like, Laurie Strode on her own with all these sort of like pressures around her, which is interesting for the character, and it makes it an interesting performance, right, from Jamie Lee.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is one of my favorite entries into the franchise just for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And sorry. And just a quick note. Yeah. So Nancy Stevens played the nurse.
I
And
was
so
just looking at.
so she's the same nurse from Halloween and Halloween 2, and then she reprises her role in Halloween H2O as well as in Halloween Kills, which we'll get to later on. But
Does
yeah,
that connect Halloween H2O and Halloween Kills?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Well, I hate it, but don't put me on the spot like that.
Well,
So
no, because Jamie Lee Curtis is in both of them too. So yeah,
it says that it's the same character name. So
yeah.
yes, but and she does survive Halloween H2O, so that's interesting. So I didn't actually clue into that when I watched Halloween Kills, but that's a cool connection for sure. So obviously that gives a lot of credence to, Halloween, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O being a trilogy, which I think you can consider it that. When we sat down to do this, Rob, you were like, okay, so how are we going to map this out? And we were looking at all the timelines,
Right.
and we were like, okay, so there's all this stuff. And then when we really started talking about it, we got into the vibe that we were like, okay, so there's actually like other trilogies and other ways to watch these films inside of all of these timelines. And obviously the one that we like the most so far is Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween 4, as I mentioned previously, but also this one, which is Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O, which is another kind of trilogy you can watch. I believe this movie opens with Mr. Sandman, right? So,
It does.
which is how the second movie closes. Well, so that's a really
Yeah.
nice touch, brings you right back into the universe, which is really cool.
And the stabbing of the pumpkin right at the opening shot. That's the first thing you see.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really, again, like I know with sequels, and it's always hard to kind of recreate that original atmosphere of the film. It's why there's only so many great sequels, and there's only so many sequels that are better than the original, of course. But this one tries, and I'm not saying this is Halloween as good as Halloween 1. And it's not my favorite sequel of the franchise, but it is a quality film, and they really did try to kind of bring back the menace of Michael Myers, update it a bit for a 90s audience, and for the most part they're pretty successful.
Other than the mask, but that's a topic.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about the mask. It's the thing that makes me not like this movie as much as others. And it's just because it just looks so wonky and it just looks so strange. I know one of the masks is computer animated, or computer touched up. And it's just, I mean, again, I don't think you'd really notice that unless you were really looking for it. It's pretty quick. But just overall, the mask doesn't feel like it doesn't feel scary. It feels a bit it feels a bit
Almost
weird.
comic-y.
Yeah, and it feels a little more like Halloween 5. Where it's just not again, we've talked about this before in this series, where they seemingly couldn't figure out how to make a replica mask, which is just I don't know. I'm so torn up about like how they could not do that, like how they couldn't figure it out or figure out something at least that looks scary. But this one has a lot of great moments with Michael. Michael trying to get Laurie Strode through the door, him kind of leaning down out of the ceiling is a really, really cool a cool sequence. But yeah, it's not I just think it takes away from the movie. So when when he's a shadow, when he's a shape and he shows up, it's pretty scary and it's good. But again, it's just the mask is just a little too cheesy for my liking, and I think that's the one hindrance that kind of sinks this film a little bit down the list.
The one scene that continues to pull me out of this film every time I watch it is in the hall when he one arm hand lowers himself.
Yeah,
because like his feet drop down first, and then you see him doing it one armed. It's like, no, he did not just do that.
like I love that scene, but I agree. Don't think about it too much.
I love it when they show him.
Yeah, it's just kind of a menacing scene. Like it's just cool, and again, you got to remember when this film was made and what they had to compete with, and how they were trying to kind of reinvent scares and make them I appreciate that scene because it's not a jump scare. It's more
Yeah.
so of a atmospheric scare. So I can appreciate what they were
Very
trying to do with it.
subtle.
But yeah, ultimately, um, again, I think the mask is the big thing. Like that's the character. It's the blankness. It's the uh um the idea that he's almost like a great white shark. He has no emotion in his eyes, and that ties into the whole theme of evil and evil incarnate. And again, if you have a kind of a wonky looking mask that looks like you said a bit comic booky, like it just pulls you out of the thing, and you're kind of you sort of fly. I feel like you very easily fly back into or move towards like that's just a guy in a suit and not like evil incarnate. Like, and I
Well,
think that's it's unfortunate because I think the rest of the film is pretty decent.
and this is I want to go back and watch 1 and 2 again because for some reason in these recent ones I've noticed more and more you actually see Michael's eyes, whereas in the original all I remember is those black, like you couldn't actually see him under the mask. If that's my
I
recollection.
Yeah, I hate the eyes. Because the eyes give context to emotion, and it 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 promotes humanity,
Yeah.
right? Like, um so with that, I mean, I think anything that that you communicate with, even regular people, uh other humans, loved ones, family members, kids, pets, like it's the eyes. The eyes is the human connection. That's what connects all of us. It's kind of why in horror movies it's frightening when you can't see, right? So so movies like Don't Breathe, or just let's say a Blair Witch Project, like anything where you have one of your senses removed, right? And it's always the sight. Like if you're trying to feel around in a dark room, you don't know if something's in there, like it's scary, right? So I think just in that essence, like the idea of like seeing a killer's eyes is like, yeah, it works for some killers and some in some villains, slashers, and whatever. But for this particular character, I'm the same with you. I just have a massive problem with flipping back and forth and saying, we're going to show his eyes. No, we're not going to show his eyes. And that happens in a lot of these films. And it's unfortunate because I think that the payoff is the fact that he's just this blank entity, and it removes him from, and again, we spoke about this in when we reviewed 4, 5, and 6. And the idea that like Michael is the fact that he might be supernatural is not, it's not on the nose, right? It's very much like, well, this could be a supernatural character, but maybe not. And that's kind of where they went off the rails in 5 and 6, was where they were like, no, he is a supernatural character, and this is why, and this is the explanation. Whereas I think even in 4, like that's why I love 4 so much, is I think that they rode that line of like, maybe not, and maybe there's like this psychic thing, and maybe there's not, and that's what's interesting to me, because then the unknown is always the most scary. And as soon as you start kind of revealing the unknown and making it known, then it becomes just a little bit of par for the course.
Exactly. Like you said in 4, they still left it ambiguous. It's something evil,
Mhm.
but what it is and how it works and nothing, you have no information. And that's the best part. Like you
Yeah,
said.
exactly. So for this film, I mean, there's a great sequence in like after that sequence where he kind of lowers himself down from the ceiling. There's a great sequence where he's stalking Michael Myers is stalking. Is it Laurie through it's almost like a cafeteria, almost, where she's hiding under the tables, and that sequence
Yeah.
is really, really good. And
Yeah.
it starts kind of with him lowering himself. Uh, the cool thing about this movie too is that they kept the storyline of them being siblings, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Because of course, as we know, and we'll get to these obviously later in the series, but like the Blumhouse movies ignored number 2 and ignore that storyline. Whereas in this film, they kept it, which was interesting. And I don't know if one influenced, like if H2O really influenced how Blumhouse went about this. Like perhaps they said, well, H2O already kind of did this, but they did it with the sibling storyline. So therefore, if we do it, it'll be more of a carbon copy than if we just ignore it. And if we ignore it, we have more options and we can go different places. And that's an interesting, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, for this film, really good. I mean, the ending is not bad. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of it, but it's a movie that was made almost 25 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back 25 years ago and say, hey, this is the ending that we're coming up with, we think this will be a cathartic moment for Laurie, I can buy it. Like I'm good with it. So I give it a pass. I think it's pretty decent as far as Laurie's story goes, gives her closure. It's a full arc from 1-2 and H2O. And I think that deserves some praise too.
Oh yeah, this is what I call the Jamie Lee Curtis trilogy, because this is why she came back, is to wrap things for Laurie. So everybody stick around, because I'm going to talk to Benner about the problems they had with the end of this film and see how much of the stories I found out he actually knew.